Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the opening of the 4th International Conference of Sustainable Innovation in Engineering and Technology, SIET. I am the host for today, and my name is Lau. It is never easy to organize a conference, especially during this COVID time. We met a lot of challenges, but we were able to overcome and make it for today. We would like to thank all the participants who is willing to give us your support to make this event successful. So for today's event, we will kickstart the event by an opening speech from APU and also followed by a keynote speech from ABB Malaysia. So without further ado, let's welcome the Chief Innovation and Enterprise Officer, Professor Vinesh, for the welcoming speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lau, and a very good morning to one and all. Welcome again to APU's conference. And this time around, it's our very own, the International Conference of Sustainable Innovation in Engineering and Technology. It is my greatest pleasure in welcoming all who are attending the opening session this morning, which is broadcasted live on YouTube and Facebook. Yeah. Just like the previous years, especially the last 2 years because of the pandemic, we've decided to carry out the conference for SIET in 2022, also in a live online manner. So it's our 4th year running, and I would like to thank the organizing committee led by the chair, IR Dr. Freddie Tan, and strongly assisted also by IR Dr. Lau Chi Yong, and our wonderful PhD candidate, Mr. Krishna Ravichandra, and the School of Engineering, the entire team that has worked behind the scenes to make this conference happen. It takes a lot of effort in bringing this conference live and ensuring all papers submitted have been processed accordingly. I would also like to thank APU senior leadership in their continuous support towards all the conferences for APU, where our CEO, Dr. Paramjit Singh, President Dr. Hari Narayanan, and the Vice Chancellor, Prof. Ho Chin Kwan, have continuously supported the research and development drive at APU. Adding to this, we are solidly backed as well by the school leadership in encouraging our APU staff to strive towards research goals, namely Associate Professor Dr. Tang Kafe and Associate Professor Sivakumar Sivanesan. We have a distinguished keynote speaker this morning, and I would like to thank Mr. Laurent Maillefer from ABB Malaysia for his support and contribution. Sustainable innovation, as the title of the conference calls for, is a must in today's world, and who better than to lead this but the engineers and technologists. Sustainable innovation has basically 3 defining characteristics that I would like to sort of summarize here. It is basically contributing to sustainable well-being, the systems that make it systematic within the processes of being sustainable, and then the entire inclusivity. We need to examine the changing conditions for innovation creation, especially post-pandemic, where a lot of new product creation resolves around the post-pandemic scenario. We need to build a global knowledge hub and localize a lot of the innovation ecosystems that they are at the moment, which also needs to be enhanced. As a result, right, the drivers for innovation and the opportunities to utilize the untapped innovation potential of people outside the traditional norms is basically the innovation context that needs to be expanded and make it more diversified. Ultimately, this has a heavy reliance on the success of sustainable innovation, which constitutes its impact on the well-being of people. So that's the key area, the well-being of people, and vice versa. Sustainable well-being is an important source of innovation and growth. So a lot of the corporates now focus on ESG, environment, social and governance, and sustainability has got a very high key vital element within those three areas that I've just mentioned. So the conference today has brought together sustainable innovation in the areas of engineering and technology. All the papers submitted surrounds the areas of engineering and technology, which basically propels sustainable innovation. I thank all the participants for the conference who have submitted papers, especially all the APU staff. I thank again Dr. Mr. Laurent and the team behind the conference, for bringing this conference alive, keeping the drive going, and as it's our fourth year, keeping it consistent. Thank you for attending this conference again, and I do hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you. Over back to you, Dr. Lau.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Lau, I think there was a problem with the audio earlier, so maybe you want to redo your introduction because we could not hear you. Is it possible for you to come back? You're muted. So we could see you,
Hi.
but not hear you.
Sorry for that. Yeah, sorry for that. Okay, okay. So, sorry for the technical problem. Okay, so let me once again formally welcome. I would like to introduce our keynote speaker. Okay, so he's the Vice President of Robotics and Discrete Automation from ABB Malaysia. He oversees a diverse portfolio of products related to the power electronics and robotics. His keen interest in working with young talent drive his involvement in the ABB Jurgen Dorman Foundation in Malaysia. And today he will be delivering a speech with the title, Driving Progress for a Sustainable Tomorrow. So now let's put our hands together to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Laurent Maillefer.
Thank you. You can hear me well, right? I just checked the audio to make sure everything is okay. So good morning, everyone. As mentioned by Dr. Loh, my name is Laurent Maillefer. I'm currently in charge of the robotics business for ABB in Malaysia. I've been doing this for the past 5 years or so. Prior to that, I was in charge of a product portfolio related to sustainability, at least a good part of it, with power electronics equipment, high power electronics equipment. Namely, we have static VAR compensators. Those are equipment that helps connect large wind farm to the grid, for example, and making sure that the power remains stable despite the fact that the wind can change during the day. I also had solar power converter in the portfolio, as well as electrical vehicle chargers. So prior to joining Robotic, I already had a good chunk of my life spent with a product portfolio related to sustainability in the larger sense of things. So today I will walk you through a couple slides and a few videos as well, showing how ABB is handling sustainability as a multinational company at multiple levels. And what are the implications for us, what that requires, and also try to give you a bit of example as to what we are doing in regard to this topic, both at the top management level, so the group executive team based in Zurich in Switzerland, but also give you some example of simple things that can be done on the ground here in Malaysia, for example, by our engineer to help and assist around this topic as well. So let me switch and share my slide. Hopefully there is no problem there. All right. Dr. Loh, can you just confirm you can see the slide?
Yes, we can see the slide.
Okay, all right. So as you can see, I've titled this presentation Driving Progress for a Sustainable Tomorrow. This will really show you, all the implication that we have as a multinational company in regard to this topic. And I will start with a quick video that frame the discussion a little bit. Then we will dip deeper into the topic. So here we go. All right. So let's start with a few numbers first for you to be able to judge and get a bit of a feeling for how big ABB is today. So as a company, we have more than 100,000 people based around the world in more than 100 countries. So a very large base across all continents. In terms of revenue, about $26 billion. So that gives you, roughly the big numbers there to get an idea of how big this company is. Also, in terms of geographical representation, the lower bubbles there shows you that our business is also fairly balanced across three main regions globally, due to the fact that we have such a large presence in many countries around the world. In most countries as well, we have been established for quite a long time. Originally, the group is currently headquartered in Switzerland, but the name ABB comes from ASEA, which is a Swedish background and history, and Brown Boveri, which is a Swiss engineering company. So the two entities merged more than 20 years ago, and that's what basically created ABB. So a very strong history in Europe, both Central and Northern Europe. And accordingly, and I'm sure you all know as well, Northern Europe traditionally has always had a very keen interest in sustainability, in treating the environment well. So it's a little bit in the company DNA as well to continue to work and contribute towards this topic. We have key businesses, and I will also give you a little bit of an overview of this: electrification, motion, process automation, and robotics and discrete automation. So robotics and discrete automation, that's the business that I'm covering in Malaysia. However, we have all four business areas that are active in Malaysia, based out of our campus in Subang Jaya. So how do we look at sustainability in the company? It starts basically with people. We need to make sure that everyone is a company. So you saw we have 100,000 plus employees globally. Everyone in the company needs to understand what the company wants to achieve in regards to sustainability, see how we want to achieve that, and what each and every individual can contribute. So there is a lot of attention put into teaching each and every one of the employees what the company aim is in regards to sustainability, so that everyone has a clear understanding where we are heading, what we intend to achieve, and that also helps people to then see at their individual level what they can do. So we start with defining the purpose of the company, and that's what you see here as a three main tagline here. So we succeed by creating superior value for customers. Then push the boundaries of technology to drive performance to a new level. And here already you can see in the background the relation to sustainability. So we, from the start, in regards to R&D of new product, we see and how we can walk towards this target of embedding sustainability in what we do. And then energizing the transformation of society. I will provide you with some example there to be a bit more concrete about this. What does that mean for us? So it's not, when you look at society, this is not just about ourselves as a company, but what the company can do in a larger environment, ecosystem, and how we can contribute. Not necessarily to make money, but just with the intention of moving society forwards in regards to sustainability. Then you have 5 main planks that you can see on the right side of the slides here. So creating success, addressing the energy challenges. Here again, sustainability comes into the picture. Transforming the industries, embedding sustainability, and leading with technology. So I'll go a bit deeper into this. So for the 4 business areas that we have, for you to get a little bit of a better understanding or clarity, electrification, this is a first business area. Basically, this area is related to power distribution. We used to have power generation, power transmission. In the meantime, this has been divested to Hitachi Energy. But whatever you have, let's say from a substation to electrical end users, ABB has in terms of products, so switchgear, protection, monitoring equipment. What you see here on the picture, also a large focus on building automation, and of course, control of energy consumption in buildings as well. This picture here, as you see, this is our motion business. So the motion business is related, if I put it in simple terms, to electrical motors and drives as well. So basically, going into motion. So using electricity to move things. And we will see that this is a major area where we can help our customer achieve their own targets in terms of energy saving, because there's a huge amount of energy globally that is consumed by electrical motor. Then for process automation, this is a business area that is taking care of monitoring an entire process in a plant. That can be metal, paper, plastics, any kind of industrial process where you have multiple flow in the productions, and you need a higher system that will monitor all this. Our business area process automation will be involved into this. And finally, robotics and discrete automation. I think you're familiar very familiar in the car industry, for example, with armies of robots putting cars together, welding the cars, painting the cars. We have a lot of this in Malaysia as well, but also in PCB electronic assembly, and know more and more in different areas, whether it's related to e-commerce, logistics. You really start to see industrial robots being installed in many different industrial applications. So now, how can those business areas contribute to the topic that we are discussing today? If we start with the motion business, you see here a combination of an electrical motors and a drive. As I have indicated, a lot of the energy in the world is consumed by electrical motors. There are some studies that have been made globally, and roughly it's about 45%. I assume 45% of all the electricity globally that is consumed by motors. And therefore, whatever we as the manufacturers and other manufacturers as well can do in terms of improving the energy efficiency of those motors will directly have an impact in terms of global energy consumption. So that's a big low-hanging fruit in terms of energy saving, simply by looking at making those motors more energy efficient. And we will see later on how we can achieve this. Part of it is technology, but part of it is also related to policy and regulations in each countries where those motors are installed. Then you have a second part here, which is the variable speed drive. So not only can you reduce the energy consumption by making sure that the motor is converting electrical energy into mechanical energy efficiently, but you can also increase the overall or improve the overall efficiency of the process by properly controlling the speed of the motor. Not every motor is being most efficient at all speed. So for a given process, you have an optimum speed, and that's what the variable speed drive can help. EV charging, this is our electrical business. I think this one, everyone is very familiar, and we see more and more of those chargers in our everyday life. Now they start popping up in gas stations as well that are being converted with some slot for EV cars, but also in a shopping center and malls. So there as well, very big contribution in terms of converting fleets from the traditional internal combustion engines to electrical cars. And ABB is there to say the leader globally in EV charger, thanks for the company stepping into this business very early, and also due to the geographical spread. In EV chargers, throughout the history, you had three, I would say, main centers that have developed. It started in Japan with a specific standard developed for Japan and Japanese branded cars. Then the Europeans came in, and the Chinese as well. So for a while, you had different standards that were applicable. So Japan, CHAdeMO standard, Europe had combo standard, and the Chinese have a GB standard. So not all the countries were aligned in using the same standard and compatibility. Now we have chargers that are able to deliver power to cars manufactured basically in any country. And also the car manufacturers globally, they start to align themselves in terms of charging standard so that you have compatibility, and that compatibility will help to drive, it will be easier for EV cars users to stop at any place and be able to charge their car. So there won't be the concern to find a charger that is specifically compatible with the cars that you're driving. So that will make it easier to own and use an electrical car, and therefore drive the demand for those cars. And we can see this increasing, and you can also see more and more electric cars on the road in our region. For the robotics business, similar to what I mentioned earlier in regard to energy consumption with electric motors, the fact that almost 50% of the electricity globally is consumed by motors. If you look at the footprint of a robot, from the time you produce the robot until the time you retire the robot, you recycle the robot, the biggest chunk of energy that is consumed, including looking at gray energy. When I mean gray energy, that means the energy that you spend extracting the material that you use to build the robot, the energy that you spend transporting this material to the production site, the energy that you need to produce a robot itself, and then during the lifetime of the robot, the energy used by the robot to do its job, and finally, the energy that you need to retire and recycle the robot. The biggest chunk of energy use is during the lifetime of the robot, when the robot is actually doing its job at site. And therefore, in terms of designing the robot itself, it's very important that you do it in a way where the robot is consuming as low energy as possible. And so what we do is now recovering energy from the robot, so that when the robot is braking, you can recover that energy and push it back into the system, the grid, the power grid. The same way, for example, when you brake with an electrical car, on an hybrid car, the energy from the braking process is being stored back into the battery pack. So that helps with the overall energy grid. There are other things that can be done as well, and I will also talk about this later if we have enough time. Finally, tuning software. Here on the screen, you can see a big propeller. This is a propeller for a ship. ABB is also involved in the marine business. And a couple years ago, we have introduced something that we call the AZIPod, which is basically a kit including a propeller and an electrical motor that is built directly into this pod here. So what you have is a direct link between an electrical motor and the propeller, and that entire system can rotate 360 on its position. So it's a very efficient way to control both the speed, the direction of large ship, but also to allow the ship to be independent in terms of parking, if I put it this way, at the port, thanks to the fact that you can rotate the propeller 360 degrees. You really have a very high maneuverability of the ships when they go to port as well. And therefore, that also minimize or even completely remove the requirement of having tugboats during port operation that would help to position the ship to berth it. So we have this technology available, and now more and more you have electricity coming on board the ship. And when I say electricity coming on board the ship, that means not only for running the systems on board the ship, but now really to run the main power for the ship. So having electrical motor for propulsions, and also looking at the better distribution of power aboard the ship as well, by using more energy efficient technologies such as DC bus, for example, which help to transport power across the ship in a more efficient way. There are also softwares that are monitoring and helping companies who run a large fleet of ships to drive those ships or define routes for those ships that are looking at the weather pattern, headwinds, tailwinds, waves, no waves. And we do have a software that helps companies decide which is the most energy efficient way from one port to another port around the world, considering weather patterns and weather information that you feed into the system. So that's also, beside having a very high energy efficiency systems aboard the ship so that the ship itself is running in an efficient way, you also see that the route that the ship is taking to travel from point A to point B is the most energy efficient route. So that applicable to the ship. For example, in robotics, there is a similar concept as well. When you want a robot to move a heavy part from one area to another area for the manufacturing process, you could do that the hard way, which means that you lift the part and then you move full speed to point B. Then you brake, like slam on the brake, and you drop that part at point B. Doing it the hard way like this with very strong and fast movement could use a lot of energy. If you have a proper way to accelerate and decelerate, that there's a more efficient way to use the robot. And so it's also important for the engineers programming the robot that they do this in a way that is energy efficient. So it's a bit similar to what you have moving a ship from point A to point B and making sure that the ship is taking the right route to be the most energy efficient. For robotics, when you move a payload from point A to point B, you also need to see that you program the robot in a way that is as energy efficient as possible. So totally different topics. One is the shipping and the marine industry. The other one is industrial automation. But similar approach in regards to making sure that you are consuming less energy in what you do. So now to come to the big picture. As a multinational company, how do we see ourselves being able to influence and contribute to the topic of sustainability and ESGs in general? So the slide that you have in front of you right now shows you horizontally what we feel we can do with our suppliers, so people providing material to us, what we can do as a company in the middle, so that's why you have ABB in the middle plank there, and then what we feel we can contribute with our customers. So our suppliers, ABB, and then our customer. And vertically here, you see what are the targets and how we see we can contribute for each one of those targets. So if I go a little bit more deeper there, you can see that on our customer side, directly, we can contribute in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And how do we do this? I've already highlighted to you, for example, by the use of more energy efficient motors or using those motors with variable speed drive, you are able to reduce energy consumption, electrical energy, and therefore also reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So our target, and you can see that's by 2030. So our ambition is to be able to reduce our customer greenhouse gas emission by more than 100 million tons. At ABB, we intend to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. So that means reducing our own emission by at least 80%. And then for our suppliers, see that they themselves are contributing to that target by encouraging them to develop a targeted approach, a systematic approach to reduce their own greenhouse gas emissions. So, we are in the middle of an ecosystem, of an environment that is so that if we act alone just for ourselves, this is not sufficient. We can develop technologies that will help our customers to achieve those goals. And also we need to see that we push our suppliers to do the same with us. And that means being stringent with our suppliers, imposing to our supplier and telling them that we want them to act in a certain way, and they can do business with us if they follow those rules. So, overall, we help both on the supplier side and on our customer side to achieve the larger target of greenhouse gas emission reduction. In terms of preserving resources, so we see that what we deliver to our customer fit into this circularity approach, which means that for the product that we deliver to the customer, there is also a plan in terms of recycling the product, for example. And I will discuss a little bit more in detail about this for robotics. Preserving resources as well, that means as a company, we aim to not send any more waste to landfills. That means we want to see that we recycle as much as possible, so that we are recycling it, reusing it, and not dumping it on a landfill. What that means, for example, in our motor business in Europe, we have collaboration with companies that are basically collecting old motors, recycling them in a smart way by separating the components of the motor, separating the steel from the frame, the copper from the wiring and from the winding, so that you can recover each material individually and then recycle those materials. So instead of extracting new minerals and new copper, new steel, iron, we basically see that we have a complete supply chain that allows us as well, after the lifetime of the motor, to recycle them and recover the material to basically produce new motors down the street. So that's where the circularity comes into question. For our supplier, here you can see as well, making sure that we spend our money there where the suppliers have already agreed and are aiming at achieving those targets in terms of sustainability. And sustainability not only in terms of environment, but also in regards to the social aspect, human rights, for example. That's part of sustainability in the largest sense of things as well. Social progress, here basically in a nutshell, making sure that everyone can go home safe in the evening, unhurt. Also making sure that everyone in our operation and suppliers operation is given a fair chance. Would that be different racial background, different sexual orientation, or basically making sure that everyone can be treated fairly. And there is a very strong focus in our company to make sure that women, for example, are given a fair chance to get into management position. Integrity and transparency, the last vertical here. This is, of course, to make sure that no one is cheating along the way by faking data or faking reports, make you believe that you are achieving your goals when you are actually not. So there is a very strong sense of integrity and transparency to make sure that the data is available to everyone in a clear and transparent way. ABB is one of the first company. It's a business area that has agreed to declare how its operation is doing. In Europe, there is a global standard developed in Europe called EU taxonomy, where companies can volunteer to provide information about themselves. And that is with the aim of making sure that what we do can be compared with what other companies are doing, and that everyone is using a common language to make sure that we are all aiming towards a common target. Let me just do a time check. Okay. So now the low-hanging fruits, what I have already mentioned earlier. First, a few numbers. Global population by 2050 supposed to be around almost 10 billion people. So that's a growing population. Still many countries, even though some countries, have slightly flat or declining population, the bulk of the countries still have a growing population. And so more people, more needs, more consumption, more energy usage, that's definitely something that is a fact. So in terms of economic activity, by 2050 is expected that the economic activity will double. So again there, to run this economic activity, you will need more energy. So urbanization, rise of living standard, more people having access to mobile phone, to the internet, to TV, that will also drive demand for energy. So we can see here that what that means in terms of electrical motors. It's also expected that the number of electrical motors will double again by 2040. So it's critical that we continue to drive this energy efficiency. If you remember that roughly, ballpark figure, the motors consume about half of the energy that is consumed globally. It's very important to see that we tackle the issue. So very high efficiency motor plus the variable speed drive. This is a solution where we can do a lot. And now I show you again a short video on this topic as well.
So basically, we are really in a climate crisis. We have 9 years to cut down more or less CO2 emissions globally by 50%.
From our food and water to our clothes, cars, everything we use is manufactured or processed and relying on motors to keep it running.
It's a huge challenge, but there are definitely people that are ready to take action and also technologies that are here to really make a huge difference.
Motors account for nearly half of today's electricity consumption, and if they were replaced with optimized, high-efficient motors and drives, global electricity consumption could be reduced by up to 10%. So energy efficiency is the key to optimization.
Formula is all about maximizing the energy efficiency, and that's very important for our cars, because ultimately what happens in the garages is going to be transferred into the passenger cars that you and I will be driving tomorrow.
We need to move towards a circular economic model where the value of products and materials is maintained for as long as possible.
The new generation of our car, the Gen 3, has been designed with the principle of circular economy, making sure that there's a proper and clear end of life for each and every single part of the cars.
At ABB Motion, we help our customers become more energy and resource efficient by enabling lower downtime, avoiding material loss, and offering modernization services, and Stena is a great example of this collaboration.
Here at Stena, we've been finding smarter ways of recycling since 1939, and over the past several decades, we've been looking for ways to help our partners to reduce emissions by integrating intelligent recycling into their production processes and business models. Together, we have created a solution where ABB replace old, inefficient motors by new electric motors, at the same time as Stena takes the old ones back and recycle them with high metal separation in an efficient way, so that we bring the metals back to the circle for production of new efficient motors.
By going beyond carbon-neutral operations and aiming to eliminate and recycle the waste generated from our manufacturing, service and logistics operations, we create a win-win scenario, as we have done in our work with Stena.
Within a little more than a year, have collected and replaced 115 tons of motors, which is a massive amount of motors, and have created a massive amount of carbon dioxide savings.
As a business, we want to promote and make possible sustainable ideas like this, which is why Formula E is a natural partner.
Certainly, when I started sustainability in motorsport, people looked at me kind of like in a strange way and were really wondering what that meant, because that was a bit paradoxical. But every single company can make a difference.
Every now and then a paradigm shift comes along and we have to take note. That's what the circular economy is. It's a new way of organizing production and consumption, and it offers real solution to humanity's most critical problem.
Okay, so I wanted to show you this video so that you see, going back to what I mentioned earlier in regards to, as a company, how can we contribute to society, and how can we help society move forward and promote those aspects related to sustainability. So you see in the video a combination of what we do in terms of technology for our motors, and what is the potential lying there in regards to having higher efficiency motors. As you have heard, the potential to cut global energy consumption by up to 10% if we would adopt these high efficiency motors everywhere. But also there, in regards to the recycling aspect, and making sure that at the end of the life, you don't simply replace one motor with another one, but you also contribute at looking at how can you recover most of the material from the motor that you have replaced, so that you don't have to spend more energy at a later stage to again extract minerals to create new steel and copper, for example. So on the one end, making sure that we provide solution for customers, both in terms of improving their energy consumption, but also in the process of doing so, making sure that there is a concept as to circularity and how can we recycle those motors that we have replaced. Then on the other end, our collaboration with Formula E, what you see, the car race there, ABB is the main sponsor for the Formula E championship. And that helps as well in driving technology development towards a sustainable solution. From the past that Formula One has always been a very good test bed for combustion engine to develop new technologies that would then be applied to the cars that you and me are using every day. So the same approach is used in Formula E to see that we are pushing there to develop new technologies that can then be applied into personal car, but not only there, also for trucks or trains, for example. So, the competitive environment of a Formula E championship is pushing engineers to develop solutions that are very efficient because of this competitive race environment. So that helps in pushing for new technology development, but that can then be used for products that will be distributed, installed more broadly in industrial sites around the world and or into your personal cars. And again, this technology development will help overall to reduce energy consumption globally. So if I look quickly at energy efficiency imperative, what you see here is that in order to facilitate the understanding, the language between people in regards to energy efficiency, some standards have been developed. So there is a standard called International Efficiency, IE, that helps all the manufacturers to speak the same language. IE1, IE2, IE3, you see different categories there. And this is very important because this is where, and I mentioned earlier in my presentation, policy and regulation. So this is where governments, agencies around the world can help to drive energy efficiency as well by imposing that motors being installed in a specific market, would be the Malaysian market or Southeast Asia market, must be compliant with a specific international efficiency standard rating. So most countries now are towards IE2. More developed markets are pushing for IE3 and even higher up. And you can see here some example as to which countries are doing that. There is minimum standard that is being imposed in some market. And in our region, for example, Singapore is already imposing IE3. Now, why this is important is because in an industrial world, by default, if there is no requirements from regulators and or from the customers, companies that produce equipment, they will see that they have the most cost-efficient solution pushed to the market to meet the demand from the customer. So if we want globally to see and to achieve a goal where the energy consumption is being reduced, we also need to see that government agencies, regulators are pushing in the same direction as well. And they can do that by requiring higher efficiency grade for the motors that are to be installed on a specific equipment or a specific in a specific market, but also educate customers to be clearer when they define their requirements for a specific machine or a specific equipment, to say, look, I want my plant, I want my operation to be energy efficient, and therefore I need you to provide me electrical motors that meet this particular international efficiency standard. So there is a work that needs to be done with regulator, with government agencies, with customers as well, to educate around motor efficiency and also help everyone to be clear in defining the standards that have to be followed in a specific market or for specific equipment in regards to efficiency. And this way, we will be able to drive and push for a better usage of electrical energy, specifically in motors. So to come to a conclusion and again summarize as a company what can be done. You see here, and we started with this, the ABB purpose. That means as a company, we need everyone in the company, all the 100,000 plus employees that we have globally, to understand what we are aiming at, what are the target, the ambition, and how we want to get there, so that everyone has a clear picture and a clear understanding where we are heading, and then can define for themselves at their own level, individual level, how they can contribute to those targets. Integrity and transparency, again, very important in our own operation to make sure that we walk the talk, we do what we say we will do, we don't cheat in declaring data or information. We are also fully transparent towards non-ABB partners and third parties as to what we are doing. That means openly declaring in a transparent way how we have been able to achieve the target that we have set for ourselves, where we are compared to the benchmark that we have set for 2030, as you have seen earlier in the slides, and how we can push it. Then around this, how we can contribute to society as well in the bigger picture. So promoting social progress, as I've highlighted, it's not all about sustainability, it's not all about energy consumption, but it's also, making sure that everyone has a fair share, a fair chance to join the party, if I put it this way, around the globe. So in every country where we operate, we want to see that everyone is treated fairly and equally. Making sure that our own operation are having a low carbon footprint. For example, electrifying our fleet of vehicles. We have already electrified about 45% of our fleet, and we are aiming at electrifying the entire fleet of vehicle that we use. So that's what we can do concretely. If I give you some example for our operation in Malaysia, we will be shifting to a new location by the end of the year, and we will see that we replace, for example, the trucks that we use for our own warehouse operation to electrical truck as well. Globally, we aim at making sure that the energy consumption, our own energy consumption, is coming from confirmed, reliable green energy. So as much as possible, we are pushing for installing solar panels on our roof, or we want to see that our own operations globally are consuming energy that has been certified green, renewable. It can be from hydropower or wind or solar, but so we are pushing each sites that we have around the world to move towards green energy sourcing as well. So I will now show you one last video that should summarize a little bit and what we have discussed today. And then we will have some time, I hope, for Q&A. So here is the last video. Okay, so that was the presentation for today. I would encourage everyone to go and visit our website as well. There is a dedicated portal for sustainability and what the company does. In that regards, we have some white papers that are being shared, opinion papers as well. So if you are interested to dig deeper into this topic, please go ahead and then visit our website. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope the presentation was interesting for all of you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Laurent. We do have some questions from the floor. Let me project the question. Yeah, so how can we gain energy from different sources? And also, I would like to know that how ABB is focusing. Is there any specific renewable energy that ABB is focusing?
Okay, so how we gain energy from different sources. Okay, here I guess you're touching on a very interesting topic, and I had the question recently at a conference here in Malaysia in regards to electrical vehicles, and whether or not an electrical vehicle is actually as energy efficient as we say it is, considering that still a large portion of power in Malaysia is sourced from coal, for example. And that's a very valid question. And again, there it goes into looking at the big picture of things. Of course, an electrical car per se is more efficient in terms of energy usage than a combustion engine. However, there is definitely a debate as if this energy is coming from a coal-fired plant. Is it truly energy efficient or not? Of course, that depends. Each market around the world has its own, local conditions. Now, in terms of how do we source energy from different sources, and can we confirm it's green or not? Different utilities around the world have different ways to look into this. We are coming to that point in Malaysia. You see TNB starts to allow users to purchase green energy, contribute to energy that is being sourced from renewable power generation, means hydropower, for example. In Europe, it's very established. You can decide when you buy electricity, you can decide that you want to buy green electricity. You pay a slightly higher tariff, but the utility certified to you that your energy is coming from a green source. Of course, for those who are electrical engineer on the call, you know that you cannot fully control all the electrical energy is traveling through the electrical grid. But at least if you as a consumer, for example, subscribe to 10 or 20 kilowatt of power that you want to be from green source, the utility has to demonstrate to you that this 10 or 20 kilowatt is actually coming from the green energy source. So by working together with the utility and being clear to the utility that this is what you want, then you can have a better control of where you source your energy from. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, thank you for the answers. So therefore, I have another one. So how do you balance between profit of the company and maintaining an environmentally friendly product?
Well, on the one hand, our top management has a sustainability target on the scorecard as well. So that means they are measured also based on achieving our sustainability target. So it's not only measuring the company's performance based purely on financial KPIs, but also seeing that those targets that have been fixed are on the scorecard of the top management, and so that from the top down to the last employees, there is a clear message being provided, and not only through slides and training and videos to teach people, but also showing that we want to walk the talk, and therefore, if we do not achieve certain targets, well, then your personal pay will be affected. So that's how you build it into the system as well. Beside this, also creating an environment through education, through information sharing, where each and every individual in the company understands that that's the way to go. And moving forward, if you do not do things in a sustainable way, we will run into trouble. So there's a lot of education going on to simply make sure that everyone is clear on those targets and why we want to go there, and in some ways, why that's the only way to go, because otherwise we will run into a deeper trouble as a society.
Okay, thank you for the insights. And also, I have a few more questions. Okay, since some are non-recycled, how do you dispose of that non-recycle in a more eco-friendly way?
Okay, so there, if you look at waste disposal, for example, when we call for tender, if we scrap some material, we are doing a thorough check on the background of the companies that we use for collecting our waste, to see that they themselves dispose of that waste in a proper way. So that means we don't simply call for tender and tell someone, I have this machine to scrap, please come and take it. And we allow the one who pays the most to take the goods. No, first we qualify the companies that are allowed to tender for the scrap, in checking that, and they need to prove to us that they themselves have the proper process in place to dispose of this material in a sustainable way. So that's how we control what's happening for those materials that cannot be immediately recycled.
Mm, okay, thank you for the answers. I think we have two more questions. Let me show you. So, what is the technology behind ABB to improve the motor efficiency?
Okay, so two main points first, as I mentioned earlier. One is related to using a variable speed drive to feed power to the motors, so that the motor itself is operating from a process perspective. You take the motor apart, but you just look at the process itself as an optimum point in terms of efficiency. So you want to make sure that you drive the process at the optimum point, and that you can do with the variable speed drive. In regards to the motor itself, they are more efficient motor design with reluctant motors, for example. So different process, different type of motor are more suitable, but the way you design the motor itself is done in a more efficient way. Then you can also improve efficiency by monitoring the operation of the motors. So you might have seen in some of the video, we have a sensor that we can install on the motor. That sensor will monitor voltage, current usage, temperature of the motor. And for example, if you start to have a bearing that is failing, and there is higher friction in the motors, through the sensors that you have, you can detect that something is not right with the motor, and you can intervene early in order to fix this. So instead of running a motor in an inefficient way because there is some mechanical issue with the motor that you have not detected, by putting the right sensor on the motor, you can have an early warning that something is wrong. You intervene faster, and therefore you can also improve energy efficiency there. So again, multiple ways to do that. Use the motor at its optimum operating point with the support or the help from a variable speed drive. The motor design itself, making sure that the design is fit for the purpose that you're using, whether it's speed or torque range, to see that you use the right motor in the right place, and then also have the proper monitoring in place to see that you intervene early if something is wrong, so that you don't inefficiently use your motor by not detecting that something is wrong with it.
Thank you. We suddenly have some interesting questions from the floor.
Very good.
Okay, okay, so as a business or a consumer, would it be better if I go for the cost-effective route instead of paying higher for green energy?
Yeah, so that's what I meant earlier. If there is a big portion on education and making sure that everyone is clear as to what is their ambition, and also clearly define this in the specification of a product. For example, if a company wants to buy a new product and that company aims at doing things in a sustainable way, they need to be clear in the specification that they send out, or request for quotation that they send out to their supplier, that they want to have a specific standard delivered to them, so that the equipment that they purchase is energy efficient. Of course, there is a risk that if the customers are not clear on what they want, a machine builder would go for the most cost-efficient solution. And so it's important there that everyone understand the impact of the choice of specific equipment when they purchase the equipment, so that they are clear. Also, as a company, that you understand where you are consuming your energy. That's also important. So it's a whole aspect of awareness. As a company, you need to be aware as to where your energy is going, all the energy that you consume, which part, which process, which equipment, which part of your company is the biggest consumer in terms of energy, and then what can you do in order to reduce this. But I think, overall, if you look at the level of discussions that you have today, on TV and the newspaper, event like we have today, the level of awareness is definitely much, much higher than it was in the past. I think people also start to realize the impact of, if you look at greenhouse gas emission, for example, you are seeing some changing weather patterns. You see wildfires going wilder and wilder in certain areas of the world. Other areas of the world, you have floods that have never been seen before. So people just start to realize that the environment around them is changing, and that is, driving this awareness as well. Then, of course, you guys, students, the next generation, I think, are also very sensitive on this, and you will also, be agents of change in the companies that you join by bringing more awareness and allowing things to change.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And also, I have two more. Okay, does the business being environmentally ethical really yield long-term benefits? Because major companies do not focus on this and manage to achieve large margin of profit.
Okay, well, this is of course a big debate that you can have, but if you look at the economical impact of not doing it, you will be affected as well. So, of course, you can look at it from your own company perspective, or your own you as an individual, and consider that the impact on your own operation on yourself will not be so big. But I think the day your factory is flooded because the weather pattern has changed and there was never a flood in your area, and suddenly your whole factory is flooded, and most of your equipment is lost, you will realize that this was a big mistake. But there are clear signs that there is an economical cost to not taking action, and again, more and more awareness is coming there. And I'm not saying that there are no black sheeps around the world that are just aiming at profit with no consideration to the environment whatsoever. But if you look at the communication from most companies today, there is definitely a keen interest in putting sustainability on the agenda. Different companies at different level, but I'm quite positive that things are improving, and you will still have, as always in every society, you will always have people who try to cut corners. But I think I'm very confident that majority of people will work together in the right direction.
Yeah, that is very encouraging. And also, I believe there is probably the one last question from the floor today. So, what might be the challenges when changing one product to a more sustainable product?
Okay, the challenge. Well, of course, you always have to look at compatibility, right? You might have issues with compatibility for the product, maybe the footprint, but typically the newer technology would have a smaller footprint, so space should not be an issue. Most people still will look at the cost. The upfront cost seems to be higher. So if you used to purchase a motor at a certain price, and you aim at replacing it by either a higher efficiency motor or a combination of a variable speed drive and a high efficiency motor, you might see that upfront you have to put more money into it, and so there's a question mark there as to whether you should do it or not. There, it's important that you again go back to having a full understanding of your process, how and where you consume energy, so that you know that yes, there might be an upfront cost that is slightly higher, or whether if you look at the savings in terms of energy consumption along the road, you will recover your investment. But then also, start by analyzing your process, replace those motors where you have the best yield in terms of savings, energy savings, so that the payback is faster. So the combination of choosing the right product, but also making sure that you start with the low-hanging fruit, where you will have a quick return.
Okay, so therefore, that's probably our last question from today. Okay, so once again, I would like to say a big thank you to Mr. Laurent for your wonderful speech. And also, I believe we have a lot of message for us to take home. Okay, so with this, here, I would like to conclude the end of the opening ceremony for our conference. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end. And we also looking forward to seeing you all probably in a physical event in the near future. And once again, thank you so much, everyone. And this is the end of the opening of our conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.